We're joined now by Andy Cowell and James Vowles, and Toto Wolff will be joining us very shortly. So Andy, welcome. We might as well start with you. The updates at Imola appear to work. Are they working here as well? What can you tell us?
Difficult to say, to be honest. They worked well at Imola. We're not doing a compare here. We were happy with the data that we got from Imola, so both cars just running all the updated parts right from the beginning of FP1, and we'll optimise based on that.
Toto Wolff coming to join us now.
Is there a fine for being late?
You were here, that's why I delayed it a bit to shorten the time I need to spend with you.
I was hoping you were going to swear as well.
Toto, it feels like a Mercedes reunion, it should be said. Well, talking to Andy, Andy, also it's great to see Adrian Newey in green this weekend. How's the garage received him on the ground here? What difference has it made to the guys here?
I think Adrian's been welcomed well in the factory back in March and welcomed well here. So it's great to have him here with the engineers during meetings, helping look at the way we look at data, the way we set the car up, and also in the garage, seeing how everything's going together and the setup of the car. So yeah, everybody's really excited to have him on board on the whole team.
I was going to say, how hands-on is he in the garage?
He's got his notebook. He's looking intently at what's going on. The pencil's been scribbling in there. He and I have had the odd conversation, and you know, the jobs list gets bigger, but it's all good, positive actions to help us move forward.
Thank you, Andy. I'm sure there'll be more questions for you in a minute. James, let's come to you. Williams, 2 cars in the points at the last 3 races. It looks like you're on a roll. Is that how it feels inside the team?
I definitely think we stepped forward a little bit relative to the field. I think there's some elements that we've just been working on in the background that are coming to fruition, but you can't take anything for granted. Our goal, I said this from the beginning of the year, is to get 2 cars in the points, which is a tall feat in this very competitive field. I think across the last few races, we haven't extracted all of the points that are possible, but it's good to see that we've been able to work across a series of different circuits.
Alex Albon has been in the points at every race, bar one. Are you seeing an improved Alex this year? If you are, where is he better?
Undoubtedly, he is. I remember on Boxing Day, he started his physical training, so he dropped the Christmas lunch and got straight into it. He's improved in as much as he executes the weekend cleanly from start to finish. There's been no even small mistakes really creeping in. It's really focused on building up across the weekend. He has the advantage now of data next to him of really a world-class driver, which is what's bringing him up to that level as well at the same time. His communication to the team, his work in the simulator, all of it has just stepped up.
And this weekend, he started well, the car is performing well. What can you tell us from FP1?
I don't think you can really tell much from it, I'm afraid. It is just where I'm sure teams are running different fuel loads, different engine modes, and frankly, if you're lucky to get a lap in, because it is quite busy out there, then you get fortunate to put your car up there. But it was a sensible place to start. What I'm more interested in is where the balance is, and it was a little bit off, so we just need to rectify that for going into FP2.
And James, once a strategist, always a strategist. Just looking ahead to the race, mandatory 2-stop, is that going to present more opportunities than normal here?
I didn't have my best record in Monaco, so I don't think I'm probably the right person to ask. But
we know that.
Yeah. I think this is what it would do, which is a good thing for the sport. I think it means that you can't really back up the queues anymore at the front of the pack. You've really got to get on with it, because there are going to be cars stopping early on, and that will force you into position. And I think that's good for where we are. It creates unpredictability. If you listen up and down the paddock, no one's quite sure what's going to happen. That's good for us. We're here to be a sport and a spectacle above all, and I think it will do that.
Okay, thank you for that. And Toto, coming to you now, you said earlier this week that you were working hard to understand the car's limitations at Imola. What conclusions have you reached?
First of all, Andy and I were exchanging politeness here at the beginning when coming in, but it's, for me at least, a pinch moment to see you two here. I never thought that you were doing chassis, because you hated chassis, no? You're an engine person. We had such a good time, so many wins, so tough moments, and absolutely deserved. you being leaders of this organization. It's a proud moment for Mercedes, I guess.
Toto, just on this topic, did you always see these two as future team principals?
With Andy, he was one of the strongest managers that I've seen ever in my life. With all the other businesses, I had also the human side and the people management on the other side, the technical skill. We used to laugh when we had an engine issue that Andy was having his fingers on the pistons and in the cylinder head on the Saturday after qualifying, and I always said, "Are your nails dirty?" Because that meant he was in control of what was happening on the engine side. So yeah, definitely. And James, James could have been a team principal in Mercedes if it wasn't about me. I was in his way, so he chose another route and does that very well, as you can see. And by the way, and as a strategist, we all remember the monumental situation when our screens froze. But it was also a learning.
So Toto, what about Imola then? Just very briefly, what have you learned? What conclusions have you drawn since Imola about the performance then?
Well, in Imola, we got our car in a completely wrong place. It's always painful to find out in a post-mortem what you did wrong. But I guess we know that, we just really screwed that up and gave the drivers a car that was very difficult. We overheated the tires massively, and that's why we underperformed. Yeah.
Well, what about here in Monaco?
Well, we weren't exactly stellar also here at the beginning of the session, but it is a totally different track than Imola. There will be different learnings. I think, like James said, most important is to put the laps in to understand where you need to balance, how you need to balance the car, how you need to find a sweet spot in the tire temperatures and get the drivers up to speed. Kimi has just done an F2 race here, so it's his first time, and you can see some of the rookies, they just need the time here before they have the confidence to let the car fly through some of the high speed.
If you look at the strengths and weaknesses of the car over the season so far, do you think it, at least on paper, should be quick here?
Well, I'm making this formulating this very simplistically. We're still fast in the cold and slow in the hot, which you have seen last year in our relative overperformance when the ambient went towards us. And so what this is going to be is, again, very, very different. It's a qualifying, even with the new strategy, it's going to be a qualifying race. The drivers need to feel confident with the car. They don't at the moment, and you just need to align the stars to be in the front in qualifying. And from there on, there's obviously you have a few options, but I wouldn't say that I was count us in the favorites at the moment. It's a tough fight. You have the Williams right in there. Alonso did a good lap, so just stay humble and try to do the best possible work and count everybody in.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's now open this to the floor. Who's going first? Yep. Ian, please.
Cheers, Tom. Ian Parks, Racing News 365. Question for you, Toto. It was in September last year, the Italian Grand Prix, that you finally confirmed Kimi Antonelli as your driver alongside George Russell. Is George going to have to wait that long this year until he's finally confirmed as having a new contract? Or is there anything this year again in the latest Max Verstappen rumours that just will not go away?
No, definitely not that long. George and I are totally clear of how this is going to go. And 100% alignment. There is no such thing as, dragging this on because that's not what we do.
Adam?
Adam Cooper, F1 for all three of you. The C6 tyre was a bit of a tricky one in Imola. It was expected to be a bit more straightforward here because it's a different type of track. What have you learned in the first session? Is that the case? It won't really be a talking point, but is it a potential race star for last 20 laps or something, depending on how things play out?
It's still a tricky tyre, there's no doubt about it, but it is working. I mean, it was more designed for this track than it was for Imola. The energy you put into a tyre in Imola is quite strong, which is why the medium was quite good in qualifying, relatively speaking. So I think it's more appropriate here. However, I'd say the early sign is the medium and the soft haven't got a huge amount between those two, so they're two usable tyres. So will people fit a soft in the race? potentially, as you described, right at the end, but I think you'll primarily see medium is the good tyre.
Andy, Toto, anything to add? Yeah, Andy?
So similar to James, we've only run the C6 tyre so far this weekend. In Imola, the C5 was the best for our car in qualifying, and we'll learn through the next session, and then make the call tonight as to which direction we're going in.
No idea. The only reference is McLaren on the mediums, and then I think Piastri put the soft on, and that wasn't much faster than the medium, if I recollect. So we don't think there's, how much was it? A tenth, no? So
Not even. I think the tyres were about the same.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks all. Next, yes, Scott.
Scott Mitchell-Mann from The Race. A question for Toto. You mentioned about the similar trend to last year in terms of good in the cooler conditions, struggling in the hotter conditions. Are you surprised or disappointed by that? How much was that a focus, of the development for this year's car?
I think it's not so much about being surprised or disappointed, because it's a fact. We are in front of a situation that we wanted to work ourselves out. I think we had a much more decent start to the season than last year, so that is maybe the positive way of looking at things. But definitely for all of us, and under expectation delivery so much, maybe also a little bit influenced by Miami and Imola having been really not good enough. So let's see how we can sort ourselves out a little bit more after Monaco. Again, Monaco is such an outlier. Between hero and zero, there's it goes quickly. So Barcelona is the one that counts in order to assess our performance levels.
Thanks for that. Next, yeah.
Mark Manbrine's question for Toto. Kimi said last week after Imola that he probably had too many distractions around him last week off the track. Firstly, do you agree with that? And secondly, if so, is that something you almost have to help him with and protect him with moving forward?
Yeah, I think, this is a learning process. I think we concluded last year that we've made a mistake in maybe exposing him in Monza in his first ever running in FP1 to the local crowds, and he wanted to perform particularly well. And I think then Imola was probably the perfect storm, because it's where he lives, it's his home track, school, family, local football club. All the people that helped throughout his career, everybody wanted to have a little bit of Kimi. And on the even as early as Friday, he was just toast. And I spoke to him on Saturday. He said, I'm out of energy of all of these. And it's clear he's so young. He wants to say thank you to everyone that participated. He doesn't want to be unfriendly to friends, family, fans, all them around. And it's also the guidance I gave to him. At a certain stage, you need to protect yourself. Hide yourself in your room, on the engineering room on the Sunday, and everything else just comes second. And I think all of us together, the family, we realized that was too much, and that is a mistake we will not repeat.
Thanks for that. Next.
Luke Smith from The Athletic. A question for James and for Andy, I guess picking up on the Mercedes reunion topic that Toto brought up. For both of you, how much did you learn from Toto from a leadership point of view? How much has that informed your own leadership of both of your teams as team principal now?
Toto just joked all of it, but it's not a joke. It really is that I had the pleasure of being... Toto, probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago or so, pulled me in.
The Brits are not so into body contact among them.
He pulled me under his wing and just slowly allowed me to get more and more responsibility within the organisation in a way that exposed me to the difficulties that he's going through daily, but in a safe and positive way. So it went simulator drivers into more technical bits of the business. And there's no doubt about it, I would have sunk without his expertise and guidance by my side. And it's what he does really well, but he's bashful and doesn't talk about too much. But it was a pleasure in that circumstance. There was a time, which is not very well known, but we spent a week together at his place in Austria, and that was one of the best weeks of my life. So there is some incredible things that you can do and learn whilst you're under the guidance of Toto.
Don't fuck it up.
That one as well.
Well Well done, James. I think, my time at Mercedes, I learnt from Toto, I learnt from Niki Lauda, I learnt from Ola Kalenius, and there are all these characters that you come across when you're in the Mercedes family, you try and remember the good bits and push and move forwards.
All right, thanks both. Next, yeah.
Graham Harris, Motorsport Monday, motorsportweek.com. Question for all three of you, going back to tyres. Pirelli have indicated that they're now going to be bringing tyres, not consecutive sets, in other words, skipping a compound. How do you think that's going to play up with all your notes and everything else you have from each race? And do you think it'll make the racing a little bit more interesting?
Yeah, as James said, this weekend we've got to use 3 tyre sets, and that's something new. So all the strategy groups are sat working out what to do for this weekend, and some will ace it, some won't, but there'll be variety, and that means we'll be providing greater entertainment. Miss a step in the compounds is a similar route to doing that. That'll be great to see. It'll be great to see the strategy group scratching their heads and working out what to do.
Exactly that. This happened a few years ago, so it's not the first time we've skipped a compound step, but I'm glad I don't do strategy anymore, and I wish them all the best, and I'll be by their side, whatever happens.
Okay, next, please.
Diletta Colombo Automoto, a question for James. Given your strong focus on the 2026 project as a team, do you think you can keep the momentum going with the current car without any major upgrades?
I think it'd be tough, is the reality behind it. I mean, we've been very candid that the other car got out the tunnel very early on for good reason, and the 26 project's going very well. We had to do that because we're in a different position perhaps to most, where that clean sheet of paper, we're not carrying anything across at all, gives us an ability to do a full reset and fix some things that perhaps we should have done a few years ago, but it's very difficult to do in that cycle. So that's our reasoning behind it. Without doubt, you can see that the development rate is high, and the field is closer than it's ever been before. What I can say is there's a couple of things that may or may not come our way to help us. Barcelona is a new front wing for everyone in terms of regulations, so let's see what happens on the back end of that. And we have a few things a little bit later in the season that we're just finding. But the way we're developing is trying to find concepts and ideas that carry through into next year to make sure that we're using that learning for great avail for 26.
James, if you were closer to Ferrari in P4 in the championship, would you have been tempted to keep the car in the tunnel a bit longer?
No. Okay. No, it really is that there is, for those that really understand what is inside Williams, this is a brilliant opportunity to properly reset a few areas that need to be and make sure that we're using robust systems and processes. And if you get caught up in the now too much, you won't be able to do that.
Thank you for that. Next.
Ian Parks, Racing News 365. James, just to pick up one point you just made earlier, you said you're glad you don't do strategy anymore. Given your wealth of experience, though, is there no element of you that plays a part across a race weekend, or when a call is made by your strategy team and you think, I perhaps wouldn't have done that, or something along those lines?
The way I've sort of described it, the best way I can describe it is when you go to a bowling alley with a 3-year-old or a really competitive teenager, you put bumpers up on the side. And I see my job as just acting as one of those bumpers. If I see things that are just going the wrong direction, not to tell people what to do, that's not my job. Ask questions that allow them to think through things differently. And there was a few examples of that in Imola, for example, but in reality, the team, I'm not in the detail that they're in. They are working 12 hours a day, every day in that level of detail, and I trust them and empower them in what they're doing. The difference is when you helicopter above a bit, you can see something slightly different and you bring that to the attention.
Says he, 3 micromanagers sitting here and control freaks on the bench.
You didn't learn that from Toto, did you?
I'm not involving myself in strategy, right?
Exactly. That's how I see it.
Adam Cooper, one question for Toto. You missed skipped races in the past, but I think Imola was the first time, or one of the first times, when you've been properly disconnected in terms of screens and so on. How closely did you follow the weekend? Was there any frustration, or was it actually refreshing to kind of half switch off and do family stuff instead?
Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt that I always knew that I'm going to miss Imola because of my son's graduation, and there's the academic record in my family is limited, so we have the first one that's actually finishing and with honors, so that was a proud father moment. And it was obviously made more difficult that there was a 9-hour time lag. So you end up in the weirdest hours on the West Coast tuning in, and that makes it even more like feel detached. But emotionally, you're all in there, and watching it with those limited tools such as live timing and the F1 app is certainly for me not something that I enjoy doing.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Scott.
Scott Mitchell from the race. Question to Andy. Lance has a one-place grid drop after the penalty, the incident with Charles this morning. It was obviously an odd one. It seemed quite straightforward in that he didn't understand that there was a second car coming. Can you just explain the extent of the damage? Obviously, he didn't get back out in the session, and how much of a setback is it for the weekend, both to lose the track time in FP1 and have a one-place grid penalty?
Yeah, our radio call wasn't clear enough. Is the bottom line. So we need to learn from that. Rear wishbone broken, damage to the floor, and so the best option is to change the gearbox because we set up 2 gearboxes yesterday ready for that sort of scenario. And the downside is that Lance doesn't get, you don't get FP1 back. So it's those laps that he's missed. In terms of setup and learning, then it's the learning from Fernando's running that feeds across to both cars going forwards.
Thank you. Here at the front.
Thank you. Tom Gert from Pole Position Magazine. The question for Toto. This will be the first time that Kimi is driving around the Monaco track with an F1 car. What are your expectations for him this weekend?
I think you need to have realistic expectations. Driving the car here fast needs experience. And I think he started the weekend very well in building up in the right way, not making too many mistakes. I mean, he clipped the inside of the barrier, but that is, wasn't hugely damaging for the car. And then slowly continuing to find his limits. I think laps are important to put them in and just make him learn. But I have no doubt that tomorrow by qualifying, he's going to be dialed in. Obviously never on the level of the really more senior drivers that know their way around blind here.
Thank you. Another one at the front.
Leonid Kluev with Grande Premio. Question to all three. Any new thoughts on the McLaren brake design? Any plans to develop something similar? Thank you.
Brake?
Which brakes? Sorry, we need the mic.
You mean the cooling? Or? Yeah. No, I think we've said that, you got to take it on the chin if somebody has done some good engineering. There's a technical team around Andrea Stella, and these guys, we have no doubt there is a millimeter of being not in a legal place. So it's just you got to look and learn and try to understand.
Similar, except you have the best haircut in the room.
I guess we've all experienced success, and we know that it's very rare that there's a silver bullet. Yeah, for good performance, it's attention to detail everywhere, and I think that's McLaren's secret at the moment. They've just chased everything really well and pulled it together. So that's the mission that we're taking on to catch up.
Okay, thanks.